Welcome, and thank you so very much for joining me on another episode of Talking Cloud. Now, this is where we talk about cloud, all things, anything cloud. And come on, let's face it, man, everything and anything having to do with computing somehow has to do with the cloud. Now, I've said so many times, and I always live up to it, I'm just the Gilligan. But I always get some just amazing guests that are, let's put them in the professor class. And man, today I got a great one. So my guest today, I've known for a number of years. I call him a dear friend first, and then a work associate, kind of just because we never really worked closely together as long as it feels like, which is really weird. So Adi Golan currently is the vice president of solutions. I see I messed it up already. Hang on. Here we go. Vice president of solution engineering for Skyhawk Security, which is a cloud security startup that's doing some really, really cool stuff in the CNAPP space and that whole CDR and bunch of other acronyms we'll talk about. But I've had the chance to work with Adi when I was briefly at Dome 9 before Dome 9 became Checkpoint, and subsequently after. And honestly, he's a dear friend, brilliant guy. If you look back, just take a look at his LinkedIn. Make sure you look at the whole experience. And, the guy's got some chops. And I found out when I was traveling with him, seriously, he looks like this meat kind of guy, but I guess what I would say if I was amongst all my friends, I'd say, don't fuck with him. But that's a whole nother story. So this guy, he's a great friend. I'm super excited to hear what he's up to. I haven't had an update lately. So Adi, welcome, man. It's great to see you. I'm glad you're with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast finally.
Yeah, that's
long overdue.
We had it a couple of times. Well, I think the last time we had it scheduled, you guys started getting bombed.
Unfortunately, yeah, that was an unexpected displeasure. But yeah,
it was really it was kind of, for me, very poignant, visceral reminder of what you guys are up against.
I think it's a kind of thing which would take you out of the entire high-tech bubble with all its glamorous and in all of that. If you encapsulate everything that we do over the years, it is a kind of a bubble which, once you step inside of it, it's its own world a little bit, right? We rarely kind of figure out things which are outside of it, and we faced with harsh reality.
The juxtaposition of those two environments, if you look at them, just what's really happening, and as you put it, the glamour and glitz and high profile of the tech industry, the cybersecurity industry. Really, I mean, Israel, come on, man, you guys have just absolutely blown up in the last couple of years in terms of, and I say that in terms of global awareness. It seems, I've known it for the last 20 plus years being involved with Checkpoint, but it's really remarkable from a geopolitical perspective as the world seemingly has gotten smaller, right? We're all hyper-connected. The whole story we're up and talking about today in the tech world is really happening. But from a geopolitical perspective, man, you guys, your leadership in cyber and cybersecurity, as cyber and cybersecurity has risen to the surface, if you will, of the public awareness. And you guys are the shit. I mean, you are it, you know? And I think
Thank
it's,
you.
I mean, and when you look at the size of the country and and the number of people, and I don't know, man, to me, I think it's pretty awesome. But hey, we're not doing a Rush Limbaugh political show here today. So
Thankfully.
yeah, that's right, because I'm no Rush Limbaugh, but so tell me about Skyhawk. And tell me about what you guys are doing. That's right. Did I say it correctly?
Oh yeah,
Skyhawk.security?
oh yeah. Skyhawk Security.
Okay.
Well, this is an interesting one because my partner in crime there, our CEO Hen Burshan, we go way back to many years ago, 20 years almost. And he actually pulled me into the world of cloud and cloud security back in the Dome 9 days. So
Yeah.
to kind of understand what we really do is I guess for people not closely situated or not closely kind of revolving around cloud security day to day, I would
Right.
say I would say that when the cloud began, and you know this as well, you've lectured about this. People didn't really know how to handle it with all its new properties being a
Hmm.
cloud, right? And security,
It's just the same thing, right? Ah,
yeah,
come on. You know, it's
yeah,
just the same
exactly,
thing.
yeah, that was.
It's just up there instead of down in the hall, but it's just the same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was kind of the shift really began when well when companies started to kind of lift and shift their operations from on-premises to the cloud. Two very bright guys, Roy Feintuck and Zohar Alon, the legendary CEO of
Yeah.
Dome 9, now um,
Also, dear
l-
friends, you
yes,
know,
exactly,
I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
not less legendary.
lifetime, right?
Exactly, now not less legendary entrepreneur and investor.
Yeah.
Um, they kind of were the first to really try to bridge the gap. And it took them a while to get there, but eventually they have become the revolutionary company in the cloud security space,
No question.
the 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 first innovator, and really Hen was there very early as VP of product, so he is um, also, his name was on a lot of innovation there early on, and then he brought me in after a while. Um, and so that company really used to deal with the posture side of things, right?
Yep.
When we talk about what's challenging today is an entirely different thing. But back then, the most important thing was to try first and understand how you get visibility into everything and how can you put controls on everything and how can you do it at scale, and then compliance came and all the regulatory stuff came along, and
Yep.
that was really the time when we kind of rolled out the Dome 9 that everyone knows.
Yep.
And Roy, you know really a revolutionary thinker, in my view one of the genius cloud people I've ever met.
Yep.
He really got it over the line, and me and Hen, we were going to Checkpoint, for like 9 months every week, basically, selling the company to Checkpoint, and this is where we really saw it shift into another gear. And this is where I got my schooling in how to make a proper security startup in a cloud space, really, because
Hmm.
I've been around, and I've seen a couple of things already, but this was really my schooling, and it
What a
became,
great school. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, foundation.
to be introduced to cloud security with Zohar and Roy and Han. I mean, come on, right? These guys are like the early builders of what became this monster industry. You know, I'll tell you something that's kind of funny. I sent this to Zohar just, I don't know, a few weeks ago. It's an NDA. signed by me for a company called Dome 9 in November 2010.
Unreal, unreal, isn't it?
And it was in the, I mean, we're talking, he was laying the egg, okay, in terms of and this was, as you'll remember, the very first iteration was let's dynamically open those ports,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely. That was machine kind of orientated, and
that
then
that was, but I
services
mean,
grew.
that was the initial, um, call it nucleus conception of a way to automate something that had been historically manual. Oh, Adi needs to access the website. We need to open up. Adi needs to access SS, right?
Yeah,
And it was really that I remember him describing and telling me about it, and he claims he offered me a job. I claim that he didn't offer me a job. So I'm not sure which way it was, but either way, it's something we like to laugh about. But it's just funny when I found this, and I sent it to him. And my response, it was actually a very verbose response for Zohar. It was ha 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 ha.
right, right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, looking back, it eventually, I guess it doesn't matter because he ended up in one of the best companies I've ever had the chance to participate in, and really, I took that and what Han really, I think also with his innovative thinking, and we're both kind of made of the same material that uh, we really prefer to innovate. And there are many different companies. You can take existing technology, you can manipulate it or enhance it or build the next generation of it, or you can splice different technologies together and make a good company that way. And there've been plenty of examples on the market. But me and Hen, um, emphasis on Hen really, because he deserves all the credit for what has happened with Skyhawk so far. And I've chipped in, but his contribution is the most um, kind of vivid
So,
in my mind. So it was really an evolution. It was really an
excuse me.
evolution from the posture side of things, right? The market needed to understand how can visibility is not enough. They
Yep.
they quickly realized it, um, and then how can we get observability? And
Mm-hmm.
in observability, CDR was born,
Mm-hmm.
and from observability now the market is talking about it a lot, but we brought the innovation 2 something years ago into the space with how can you be proactive with observability. And this is really like saying, hey, can we take a look in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we
Crystal
glimpse
ball
into the
kind of
future?
stuff, right?
Yeah,
What's
can we
in a,
glimpse in?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's and if you'd ask somebody, and we actually had spoke with people like Gartner and others 2 years ago, and they thought we were off our heads,
Hmm.
you know, that we could actually, um, make a statement like that. And once we've proven it, they saw it work in its infancy. They were blown away by it. And really what we do now is we complete the observability solution with two main innovative things. One is the ability to predict what's going to happen in the future, and not just predicted by using any kind of graph traversal or
Mm-hmm.
any kind of connecting the existing dots, but actually simulate non-disruptive AI-driven attacks in the cloud, and then understand how you're going to be attacked, where these attacks are going to be successful, and how the alert is going to look like
Mm.
in the future. And all of that feeds really into the CDR and trains the CDR to become better and better.
So let's
And
do a level set here because I want to make sure. I think I have a broad range. Most people are probably with us, but what you just talked about is really essentially covering about 15 years of time in terms, maybe 20 in terms of cloud evolution, and it was highly compressed. So just to make sure everybody's where we are Now, you were one of the early guys at Dome 9 with Hen and Roy and Zohar. And, my fortunate timing was that I joined, and then boom, Checkpoint buys us. You guys, like many entrepreneurs, all left at various times after the earnout or the handcuffs or you found your next aspiration. Um, and I know you spent a little time at Wiz a while back. We
Yeah.
talked about some things because there was some companies I was working with in the identity space. You'll
Mm-hmm.
remember,
Mm-hmm.
um, and
That's
all the
right.
while, as life goes on. Certainly, there's been some remarkable dynamic occurrences within the cloud space, and I would say, namely, it's let's first clarify. Gartner made sure it was clear as mud by defining not just CSPM and posture management, but then they introduced CNAPP. And
Exactly.
it's a bunch of concentric overlapping circles that make sense to no one other than the analyst from Gartner explaining it, right? I mean, it's just always so amazing. And now, and if you look at the definition, Adi, of CNAPP, Cloud Native Application Platform Protection, or protection platform, whichever. If you read it, even from Gartner, it's a collection of tools, right? So it's not a clearly defined space. Okay, since that came about, there's been all kinds of flurries, and there's been all kinds of different amalgamations and consolidations of all of those various circles on the map, because there's some, like identity, that were off kind of almost standing on their own, that are coming into this whole mess. And then the whole Wiz thing, it was a
Mm-hmm.
big impact in the market, namely because it's a company that's raised nearly $2 billion in funding.
No, I have
Okay,
to disagree. And I have to
well,
disagree here.
hang on, let me finish.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons they're so loud. There's a huge amount of money that's been invested in them. And so, I mean, there's not too many companies that have had the kind of funding that they've had in the narrow window that they've had. I mean,
Yeah,
who's
but
raised $1.8 billion?
yeah, but I think that it's not even secondary. I think it's tertiary to the cause of the noise you speak of.
But well, let me just
The
finish out.
money.
Let me
Yeah,
finish
yeah.
out on my thought, because I think that it was a number of things. Okay, Wiz, huge amount of money sucking all the oxygen out of the room. The whole Google acquisition for a lot of money, a lot of money. It's pretty big statement to that space. And so where I'm going, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
is, to me, posture management, something everybody's going to be doing. It's like a dime a dozen. Here's the snaps, and it's really not even. I mean, it's pretty wide. As you get more and more into really handling the unique aspects of the cloud, I think that's where that's going to be the separation between everybody's doing posture and what do you really do that's different. And I believe you guys and what you're doing are one of those kind of companies, because it seems like there's a lot of confusion in the space in general.
Well,
There's a lot of confusion.
well,
I mean,
let
hell,
me address.
Checkpoint was in, and now we're saying, hey, we're giving all our CNAP business to Wiz.
Yeah. Let me address
And don't
a
worry
couple
about
of
the
points
dogs.
there.
We're fine.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
Is
all we just all living in life, baby.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in my yard and the dog's inside. So yeah. So let me address a couple of points there because I think you've made um, a few of them, and I do want to kind of stop for a second. Um, when we talk about Wiz, I think it would be, from my side, would be a disservice to completely agree that the noise that was made was mainly due to the amount of money they took in. I
Well, I
think
won't say.
it's
I mean, I don't want to imply that it was mainly because of, but I can't think of another. Do you know? I can't think of another company that's raised 1.8 billion
well,
dollars in funding,
yeah, but that,
and
you
so
know,
that just puts it out in headlines more than a company that's raised 200 million or 300 million or whatever. That's all I
yeah,
guess I'm saying.
yeah, but I think it's more for the financial. It makes more difference, I guess, in our when where we come in our space. I think what they've done to earn that investment is much more interesting, and I think there's a lot of intricacy there and um, a lot of drive, ambition, execution, to excellence beyond measure. Um, and what they've done really, it changed the face of the industry, first and foremost due to the produce of those efforts, right? To what they put on the table, right? And with that, of course, came all the other things, like the investments and eventually the exit that they've made, and how they made it, and Asaf and Yinons and all the other guys, their stance on what they believe was right and where the potential for the company was, and they were able to significantly improve on the initial offering and so on and so forth. So I think that
Yep.
overall what matters is a combination of magnificent people came together, right? And the product of their collective effort translated into um, one of the best drivers of the industry to date. And I've been, although a very small part of, I've been there briefly, less than a year, but I think that I owe a lot of the lessons I learned as well to those four co-founders, really, and to my colleagues that I worked. I used to be a director of product there, and so working as a director of product in a company that is such a benchmark for excellence really taught me a lot of lessons, and I take these lessons with me
Hmm.
every day. Um, and they really defined what really CNAPP needs to be, and it has its rightful place on the market. And I think because it is dominant, first and foremost because it covers a lot of necessities which were very siloed and very unmanageable previously, and they combine these things very gracefully
Hmm.
and really well put together platform. However, with that said, all of that is primarily looking at the theoretical side of it, right? It's the posture side of it. It's the
Right.
static configuration side of it.
Right.
It's the vulnerabilities. It's the misconfigurations. It's the compliance issues. Their toxic combinations paint a really vivid picture of what is that static posture and what is that static risk. One of the challenges we've identified at Skyhawk is that it really isn't enough, um, because observability is a must-have tool, and what's proved it over time is the fact that no matter how good a product you have that allows you access to very good information that Wiz produces, companies cannot, they just cannot cope with the amount of the findings that come out of these products, right? And
Hmm.
the depending on who you ask, it takes between, it can take up to 4 months to fix a high or critical vulnerability, or and what about that time frame in between?
Yeah, it's not
Hackers that,
acceptable today,
yeah,
man. 20 minutes is time to exploit, I think, is how on like a CVE or something that gets published, it's drastically shorter than it's ever been ever because of AI, right? I mean, that's what's doing it. So tell me.
Yeah, let me adjust
Yeah,
the
you're
camera a
fine.
little bit
You're a handsome
because
man. Everybody can tell that. It's
oh, no,
okay.
no, no, thank you. I appreciate the dough, but the sun is in my face, so that
Oh,
I think
okay.
looks better.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead. Please
So
continue.
you said something that I think is really, the in my mind, that nuanced, where it sounds like you guys are taking it, and I couldn't agree with you more. We've kind of went through this iteration of posture, and what CNAPP does is kind of that next step of the static, of the snapshots, right, of the pictures of where you are, but it doesn't really do much for the predictive, as you're alluding to, as kind of telling the future. And I'm
Well, we're
curious,
ahead of ourselves a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, you're right.
you know, but I can see where, and of course, immediately I think about some of the other, AI and some of the things that, and how a really well trained LLM can accurately guess what's next, right? And so you start to think of those combined technologies, and things are moving so fast in my mind's eye. Remember, I'm the Gilligan on this, but what I see and what I hear is a solution that is watching everything so much and seeing everything with such accuracy on patterns and occurrences that it can say, this is what's your tomorrow at 8:30. This is what it's going to look like, your application mix, your workflow, because we've been seeing it for the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I mean, expand. Tell me where I'm wrong. Am I?
No, no,
Talk about what
you're
you
looking
guys
at
are
it.
doing.
Yeah, yeah, you're looking at it. Yeah, but we are kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because if we're talking, evolution, I just want to briefly stop on the CDR thing because on the observability thing because I think it's important. There was a
Say out the
paradigm
whole
shift there.
word. Say out the whole word. CDR.
Yeah, so it's a cloud detection response, or these days you can call it CTDR, cloud threat detection response. Now there's say
Yeah.
a CADR. Now it's a cloud application
And this
detection and
is
response.
exactly why I wanted you to say it out, because this is also what I know is happening, is that once we define a term, we identify the things that it also needs, and then it, kind of has a new evolving acronym, and we see that all the time. But thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and now that you kind of and now so once you realize that you kind of you understand that you need observability, how are you going to get it? And the early signs of that were taking the telemetries and the real-time signaling and trying to tie it all inside a SIEM solution, right? And that was very, very counterproductive to many because you had to write a lot of static rules to say if A plus B equals something, then we need to do, XYZ.
Right.
And that really is, first of all, that's not scalable. And
Right.
second, as a human, you will never be able to reach even a fraction of what you can cover, right? No matter
The
how many humans
variations.
work on
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, the variations, the possibilities, and it's not only about that. It's also about keeping with the dynamic. Now, let's
Right.
imagine that you've done
The constantly changing, right? It's not just different iterations, but it's that those variables or those data have changed as well, right?
absolutely, and they change on a minute by minute basis as well. So you
Yeah.
have to keep up. So before we discuss prevention, let's try to understand how difficult real observability, real detection is, because there's a lot of anomalies. An anomaly is anything. Anything out of the ordinary is anomalies, and not all of those anomalies have some kind of security context attached to them, right?
Yeah.
And out of all those that have any security context attached to them, how many out of those can you really say have some kind of malicious intent embedded
Right.
in them? And so when you look at, if you're looking at it raw, you really can't handle it. So what we've done at Skyhawk is first we understood this problem and we decided to create 3 layers of machine learning and AI to deal with that. So the first layer would, weed out all the noise, make sense out of all of this telemetry and signaling in real time, and then say, okay, what has security context? Let's put it together and then find out what has potentially malicious intent and put it together. But we want to alert about it, because one of the main problems for companies these days is the overwhelming amount of security alerts that they're getting, right? So what
Did you
we
say you
wanted to do,
won't alert
yeah, we won't alert on them yet. What we
yet?
want to do instead,
Okay.
yes, what we want to do instead is we want to
And what
identify.
if I hear what you're saying, Adi? It's like you're putting all of this intelligence together, but you're not going to start popping off yet without the proper context, without the full picture, and that's what really sounds like differentiates you.
Well, yeah, in that was the early differentiator really before all the predictive stuff, which is the icing on the cake, and it's a whole different thing that I'm going to talk about in a second. But just in sheer terms of detection, first and foremost, is we wanted to do what nobody else had been able to do before then. Hence the innovation is to really first define an incident in progress, understand there is an actual incident in progress, and help our customers stop it before it becomes a breach. So it's not only about providing observability, it's the entire context of an incident as it is progressing with all the evidence in place and all of the moving parts without losing context. You can only do that if you implement really, really good machine learning models and AI. You can't really do it with static rules and anything like that. So we really kind of detached ourselves from existing technology and went out there. It was
Hmm.
partially incubated already in Radware, our um, holding company that owns partially
Hmm.
part of Skyhawk, but it started to incubate inside Radware. But really, when it got its core capabilities and functionalities, when Han took over as CEO, and we I remember us having discussions before he even took over as CEO about how it's going to be and so on. And so when he came aboard, and shortly after he brought me along, and so um, we wanted to first, give the opportunity, really empower companies to be able to define what an incident is, to see what an incident is in real time, and try to stop it before it becomes a breach. The problem there, though, no matter how good the technology is, and it's superb, really, not because, just genuinely speaking, uh, out of my experience with everything else on the market, really this technology is huge. Just that, if you look under the hood and you look at the at what it's producing, but
I'm amazed because you said and I didn't realize this, but Radware. You have to. I mean, I think most people know this. This is a legend in the space. I mean, Radware's been around 96. I just looked it up. Was when they were
yeah,
founded. 29
it's a traded
years,
company. Yeah,
and a serious contender in their intellectual property, clearly, because you can't stay in the game that long if you don't have some great technology,
absolutely,
man,
absolutely.
and
But they
continue to
make,
innovate, right?
yeah. But they make such an entirely different thing from what we make that it made sense to
Mm,
to spin off, to incubate a startup and really spin off a startup and give it a life of its own, and then bring in people who know how to do this.
yeah,
And
very
hence,
cool.
where Han came in, and then I came in, and a bunch of other people came in. Asaf, our VP of product, who I should mention here, who has just as much contribution. And so, and really going back to the CDR for a second, for cloud detection response,
Yeah.
just to accomplish that milestone was great. But then, you realize that great technology and great solutions, they need to also make space for the realism that comes after, because okay, I've given much greater tools to SOC teams and security teams, but there are still gaps there that needed to be addressed that you couldn't solve with just the real-time threat detection, no matter how good it was. Realization that SOC is detached from the cloud teams and the application teams and the SOC. It takes time for them to investigate, and takes time for them to really get to a resolution, and all of that is precious time, especially with the introduction of weaponized AI into the
Mm.
cybersecurity space, and now weaponized AI really kind of lowered the bar for entry level attackers to become
What an
much more
understatement.
so. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, now all I have to do is tell it, what I mean, it's crazy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but
No, no,
it's
no,
like,
no.
and
Your
it's funny.
reaction is natural.
Well, I've been telling people not to go. I don't want to go off topic too much, but it was interesting what had happened just in my own house with my wife, and prompting has become such a critical capability. I'm not sure if I want to call it a skill or not, but it's really important. It's so to really understand how to properly prompt, how to properly craft your prompt, and uh, you know, bringing it. And I showed my wife because she was approaching it very much. She's in her 50s. She's approaching it very much like going to Google, but now it's more sophisticated, and it's I think there's a real interesting transformation that's occurring on people getting educated on how to interact with this assistant. And back to what's happening on AI in the negative world is doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, hey, write me a phishing email, right? That it includes this person and this person, and because now we're going out on the web, we're finding all of that. Oh, you mean Adi Golan, the vice president? Who should it be from, right? I mean, it's getting quite scary on what's so accessible just with a simple statement, just with
Yeah,
simple language. I guess
I
is
can
really
agree,
the
but
point.
I can agree, but I think that I'd have to scare you just a little bit more. And I'm not into scaring, actually. I don't use that as a
No, it
tactic,
won't
as
scare
a
me. I've
practice.
been,
But
I get it.
yeah, but I have to say that these days it evolved way past the SaaS providers of large language models like OpenAI, because
Hmm.
these days you have your own
Oh,
completely uninhibited, completely unrestrained models that you control
yep,
100%.
yep.
And
And you
therefore,
train. Sure.
you can train, and you don't have to be proficient
Yep.
or tricky with the prompts to get it to do exactly what you want. And
Yep.
also, another fact that I want you to consider before we move to to the predictive or preventative side of things is the fact that these days you don't really need to break in anymore. You just log in. And Gartner, they back it up. They say, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I hope Gartner not going to be too angry with me, but I think what they're saying is 70% of attacks in the cloud, the attackers are logging in and are breaking in, and it's only
Right.
rising.
Stolen credentials, right? Or
Yes,
or
and
or or if not stolen, somehow exposed, somehow obtained, whatever it is. Yeah. It's
yeah.
the and but the reason I think it that's happening is because before I only had two doors that you could get in, right? Metaphorically speaking. That was it, right? Two doors. I got my front
Hmm.
door and I got my back door. Okay, I got a couple of windows, but those are really locked down. But that's
Hmm.
it. Where now there's a gajillion doors because it's in
Oh
the
yeah,
cloud, right?
going back to
It's a
going back
milkshake
to
in the sky. I just gotta poke a straw into it, and there's everybody's poked into it.
yeah, yeah. You bring you know actually taking me back to Roy Feintuch's AWS reinvent talk about perimeter is dead, long live perimeters. I
Yes, I
remember it
remember that.
vividly.
Yes.
And talking about how many perimeters, even back then, I think it was 2017 or 2016,
Yep.
and about perimeters. But I'm not even talking about these perimeters, right? Suffice it to say that they do provide a platform, you know, for attackers. But I think um, social engineering has significantly enhanced its kind of threat factor due to AI. And that's because I can fake your voice, right? I can even fake real-time video these days of your face talking.
Yep.
Now,
In
if you were a CEO,
whatever language, and my lips move properly. Uh,
absolutely, and if you're a CEO of a company, you know, doing a video call on WhatsApp to your CFO saying, "Hey, listen, I'm with whatever. I need you to transfer,"
yep.
or to their, security saying, "Listen, I need access to this and that and the other." Right?
Yep.
And so it becomes less of a thing to try and stop people at the perimeter because ultimately you need to understand that statistically they're going to have the means to come in. It's what can they do once once they're inside, and
Yep.
how can you prevent it?
Yep.
This is where really this piece of technology comes in, this predictive or preventative piece of technology with the use of weaponized AI, which is non-invasive because it attacks the model of the customer's environment, not the actual environment, and it challenges the CDR continuously 24/7. And what it does is really it goes beyond the regular graph. What people know as the graph of is the representation of everything that you have in the cloud. You can put it on a graph and connect the dots. That would be like a chessboard. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where really begin. Most solutions on the market in the CNAPP space, this is where they end. They present you the graph is their final presentation. On
Right.
top of that, they do some stuff, but ultimately, this is what the what the outcome is with
Here's your
posturing
answer.
things. Right. And
Yep.
what we do is this is where we begin because attackers, they don't stop where it says stop. If they don't know how to advance, they will create new capabilities for themselves to move further into eventually reaching the crown jewels that you're trying to protect. And and a real attacker would not flinch at the idea of having, you know, some kind of controls inside, having some kind of restrictions. They will do whatever they can do in order to enhance their capability once they're inside, circumvent the controls,
Yep.
and then ultimately reach their target. This is what our AI is doing, and it's validating existing customers' controls to make sure that they will work when the time comes. It predicts future incidents because it simulates these attacks very accurately until
So,
fulfillment of the attack, right?
so if I heard you right, what you were talking about is what an attacker will do, and then you slipped over to saying that's what you do. So, did I hear you right that what the solution you have actually simulates or acts and conducts behavior that would be the same as a hacker if he or she were on the inside, so that you then can respond appropriately to have the controls to respond against it? Am I getting it kind of?
Yes, absolutely. I think you're spot on. What we do is we have an adversarial AI, which is the red team side of things, right? If you consider our threat detection solution as the blue side of things, then the adversarial AI that we put in would be the red side of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And
I'm
so
just
what it
in my mind. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing us playing paintball, and you're wearing a blue uniform, and I'm wearing a red uniform, and I get one of my guys to put on a blue uniform, and go hide and then assimilate yourself into the blue team, right?
So we do it continuously. We call it the flywheel internally, and this is
But
what
you see what I
we.
mean? Is that's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now I mean, I've got the reconnaissance from my red guy who's dressed in blue. And I mean, I know it's not exactly the same because you're not out cooperating with the hacker in so far as joining their team, but functionally how the behavior is to provide the intelligence to ensure you're protecting against what that hacker is going to be doing, right?
Yeah, and we show these attacks and their outcomes and what makes these
Hmm.
essentially the sting in the attack, or a couple of them or even more, right? We show them ahead of
Hmm.
time. And so you can do a couple of things. First, what you can do is, well, if you're able, you can just take the sting out and say, well, if this is the facilitator of this attack, why don't I just go and change stuff
Right,
and make this attack disappear? It will be no longer viable in my environment. That's great. You can and at times do that, but a lot of times, um, to re-architect something in production, which is that significant, is challenging,
right,
right? And so what you really want to do then is prepare your SOC for the day that you will be attacked like that, and what they will need to do in a matter of seconds,
right. To keep the blast
instead of.
radius here, right?
Yeah, or to or to eliminate the attack altogether, and really take it to seconds instead of many hours, days, weeks,
Yeah, yeah,
months
yeah.
of investigating. So you pre-train them on these attacks. They have a chance to write their playbooks ahead of time. They have a chance to create automated response. And one of the inhibitors of automated response is the fact that you didn't really know what would be true positive before, and you didn't really know if your automated remediation, that's how we call it in the industry, right? Your fix,
Right.
essentially, automated
Your
fix would
fix,
not
yeah.
harm your business in the process of fixing something.
Hence,
And
one of the
so
reasons most people don't flip the go full
exactly,
automatic because there's always the exception, right? We live in the
e-
world of exception.
exactly. And this allows, this proactive thing essentially allows you to, because you would know it's a true positive, because you'd have time to understand what it will be affected
Hmm.
by the attack and how it will transpire and what would be the elements it touches. You can then create tailored automated remediation that would not harm your business when it's on,
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
it kicks in. So that's also an
Hmm.
important thing, right?
Hmm.
And the third thing, which is not less important, is we found out that, ultimately it was one of our goals, but we really saw it in action at scale when customers that we've been privileged to have, and it's from Fortune 100 to you name it, right? And so we had scale to look at and understand how it works with different types of
Hmm.
companies. And really, what they
Hmm.
suffer from is, having tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. We have one that had 500,000 of high and critical posture alerts and vulnerabilities. So how do you differentiate between the ones that, how do you prioritize these
That
things?
are
And
really the
yeah,
ones that you better fix now.
yeah, imagine taking 500,000 down to 300. And I'm not talking about 300,000, 300.
300, really? Wow.
Yes,
That's significant. That's
yes.
significant.
And
Yeah.
and and yes, and I think this,
But how can
um
you have, I mean, part of the problem, and again, I'm the Gilligan here, but in an
you keep
environment,
saying that, but it ain't true.
yeah, I struggle with, how can you have a 500,000 high or critical? I mean, it's one thing to
Oh,
have a
it's
500,000 alerts, but but for you to say you've got 500,000, and out of that 500,000, 409,
300, yeah.
I mean, 400, no, 499,930 of them, or
Oh, that's where
970
you're
of
going.
them, really are not a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean, how can that? That's where who's
I wouldn't
lying?
say,
Because
I wouldn't
somebody's
say,
lying.
no, 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 no. I don't think so. I wouldn't say they're not big of a deal. They're less of priority, and it is a game of priorities these days because resources are scarce
Yeah,
everywhere, and you need to know, what
but I mean,
you
I think like
really
critical
put
is
your
critical.
resources on.
Critical is
Well,
critical, right?
yeah,
So
but
now we're back at the context of to whom, right? We're critical to you
yeah, that's what
versus
I wanted to
critical to
touch
me,
on.
right?
Well, yeah.
That's just our Azure POC installation. It's no big deal, right? I
Well,
understand.
you can even know that with CNAPPs. It's not like it's not, but I would say this. I would say this. You're asking a very, very, very good question, and I want to make sure that I give you the full answer it deserves, because it's really one of the questions asked by really smart people in the industry, and the answer is this. It depends on what you consider critical. If you
Right.
need to pass a compliance test tomorrow, then those 500,000 which don't make you compliant, which make you uncompliant or
They're all
non-compliant, if
critical.
you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
They're
right.
all critical.
But
Yep.
um, if you're looking to narrow down the possibility of attack, imminent attack,
Yep.
that's the different way to look at things. It's just a different way
Yep.
to analyze these things and prioritize these things. And I think that
And
it
I can
is
understand,
crucial.
right? I can understand, and I'm an image metaphor analogy guy, and I think, okay, if I live in a house that's got two doors and 20 windows,
Hmm.
and I leave all of them unlocked, all 20 windows and two doors, I've got
Hmm.
22 critical vulnerabilities. But if I, uh, and so I understand, but for me, those windows, I mean, 15 of them are 20 feet off of the ground. You're going to have to get a ladder, find a way to get up. You know what I mean? So I can understand in the world of alerts, hey, you've got a wide open window that someone can get into your house. That's
Oh no,
critical.
CNAPP can show you these things as well. So to give the credit where it's due, right? It does differentiate, especially advanced CNAPPs with the leading companies these days. They do show you, the toxic combination or the critical combinations of these things to put forward the stuff that is, you know, that answers the question that you asked just now.
Yeah, and I guess
But
where I was going,
ultimately, yeah,
I,
ultimately it yeah, in
go
the
ahead.
terms of attack, it doesn't. In terms of attack, it doesn't go all the way where it needs to go, and this is where we come in. Essentially, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, and I guess I was merely just pointing out that I could understand at a very general sense if I looked at from a and I was thinking more in the compliance world. If you've got an unlocked access point, you're not compliant.
Exactly.
And me as the homeowner does I don't give a shit about the windows on the second floor. They can be unlocked and wide open. I'm not to me it's not critical because I understand where they are. I guess I'm just merely I can see it's different for every organization, the industry they're in, where they are, and I can understand that. My issue, I think, goes more to why we don't have everything can't be critical. So I guess, I mean, I
We do
guess
have,
I'm
we do have. Imagine if that particular customer had 500,000 of high-end criticals, how many medium and low did they have? So there is a distinction there. I understand where you're going with this. There is a
right
distinction there, and CNAPPs do a brilliant job of making the distinction.
stratifying all of those different alerts, right?
Well, yeah, it's and ultimately again, they are not necessarily alerts in a sense that it's not that SOC is getting, woken up at night
Right.
for some combination. right? It's more of a report that you
Right.
get, and you go and you address those that are high and critical first. You see
Right.
all those combinations, a machine that has an outdated software, it has a vulnerability on it that's connected out to the world, it has some kind of ability to connect internally to some things which would be considered non-trivial, and it also has privileges on it. So all of this information, it is a great context to have and understand. Ultimately, the reality is that there's too many of these things, and so the tertiary plus of what we do with our preventative technology is also helping prioritize these things, because you can weed out the stuff that will really make you get hacked.
So I got a half a million that you bake down to the 300 that I really need to tackle. So I tackle those, but we're talking about, the white water of the wave, so to speak. It's very tumultuous. It's always changing. It's always new. So certainly there's new ones, but do we ever get to a point where that number gets really
Reduced?
small,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
small, or or is the composition of what you're identifying constantly on the move, so you're always going to have kind of a baseline of change? You know what I
No,
mean?
no, no. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So it's a great question. There is dynamism, of course. I mean, there's no question about it.
Right.
Dynamic nature of the
I mean, that's the
cloud.
cloud more than any other compute environment we have, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we do and what we empower customers with our solution also has another positive effect. And in combination with what's happening in real time and the predictive technology, you can also understand where operationally you're doing things wrong. And therefore, not only you can prevent future attacks, you can understand the saying it, diminishing it, but the bad things that you're doing, bad
Right.
practices that you're
Sure. Sure.
implementing, and then what
The
you can do.
redundancies you maybe have. Give me maybe if you have an example, one that you've found and identified. I think,
Well, the
because
way
now
you dispense.
this is the kind of stuff to me.
Hmm.
This is where the wheat gets separated from the chaff in terms of a product that gives me something that goes it's like the difference. Sorry for my analogies, but it's the difference between an annual and a perennial, right?
Well, but
It's but and what I mean is if I buy a product for a solution, that's an annual. But if it then grows and expands, what it gives to me, that's what I mean by it becomes an annual, because it's giving me more than what I originally bought it for. It has some enrichment capability, and it sounds like that's what you were talking about.
yeah, and if you asked about an example, I'll give you a simple one that we come across almost every day, and there are customers who implement certain techniques or their practices internally, and with the way that they practice dispensation of permissions, the way that they uh, give out permissions, and how these permissions look like, the schemas of these
Hmm.
permissions, and the the systematic kind of
The old way
what
of
way they
putting it in
handle
the
it.
buckets.
So
I mean,
so
that's
so so that you can then also using the, but that's again, that's like a fourth place benefit, but also has its credit. But again, you can identify these processes, and then you can change them so that in the future you
mm,
won't generate more of these for yourself. So you can diminish the amount of over time, the amount of things you're going to get, just because you're enhancing your practices,
mm.
right?
Are you guys?
You
Is your deployment Is it an agent based? Is it
No, no.
a SaaS? Talk just maybe a little bit
Yeah,
about.
it's a SaaS solution, agentless. We don't we really think, and yeah, we know all about the bloom or rejuvenation of eBPF technology that died 20 years ago, now suddenly becoming, um, you know, in the end of the day, it's the same thing, really. The way we look at it, you want to understand the entire context of an incident and the ability to traverse in the cloud, and that really, in the face of that, what's happening with one of the processes on your thousands of the machines that you have in one of those machines is really inconsequential to us. We think it's not worth the cost of maintaining and deploying agents.
Mm,
For that, but there are many different things you have to have engines for you can't achieve,
yep.
but for observability and for the ability to predict attacks and stop them, absolutely not.
Well,
We
you
don't,
kind
we
of it sounds like uh, I hear a strategy that says, you know, for me to really truly have a level playing field, eye to eye with who I'm up against, I've got to do it without an agent. I've got to be in the hacker's realm, so to speak, so that I really can look at everything from.
Well, maybe I don't know if it's from that angle, but I can tell you also another fact, I guess, is the ultimate kind of evolution of what's happening is that cloud providers understand that they need to cover their bases, and so they have their own native solutions for the host. And by the way, we integrate with them, whether it's
Mhm.
for you know to just be flexible with what customers have or to lower TCO for customers, be flexible with
Right.
the telemetry we're getting, but also because, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah.
If you want to, if you as a CISO or a CIO, you want to have a bunch of products that you think covers the entire spectrum of what you need, and for all of them to have their own agents, that would be a nightmare for you. So wherever you can utilize what's there already
Yeah.
is great. So what we do is we integrate with what's there already, where we don't bring that telemetry ourselves. We bring a lot of signaling and
Hmm.
telemetry and intelligence ourselves. But if there's already something in there, why don't use it and save customers money and
Yeah.
effort and maintenance?
Just through APIs and accessing what's already out there.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
we
that seems like a
efficiency.
big trend, right? I mean, I know that's been a big push, but it does seem like, you know, um, we're already hyper connected, but it seems like on the back end there's even more API integration, more interoperability, supply chain. I mean, it's a very double-edged sword, right? I mean, because we know as soon as I allow my supplier or whatever, now I've got to check out what they're using because I'm as vulnerable as their
Oh,
weakest
you
link.
raised a great point. You know what? And by using the predictive technology that we have, the preventative technology, actually one of the things that we do is we identify third-party suppliers
Mm.
and third-party SaaS solutions and whatnot, and we know to give you the predicted impact of these third parties
So
if and when they be hacked.
So if
So
I let's say I just changed my trucking company and I now go to logistics ABC and they have API integration and so my guys go ahead and do that with your solution. I'm going to be able to actually make some
foresee.
intelligent make some intelligent assessments and predict or foresee what could happen now that I've kind of opened up that
Yes,
workflow.
you could chart the risk and then discern
Mm,
the impact.
that's cool.
So if these one of these vendors is critical to your day-to-day operation,
Hmm.
ahead of time, what you could do is you could understand how you momentarily can do without them
Mm,
without breaking your entire operation, and
hmm.
do it with surgical precision at the time of this event. So if
Wow.
that vendor would be exposed to a threat and they would, hopefully say, we have been attacked and so on,
Right.
you'd have the means to survive without them, and
Mm.
temporarily take them out of the loop, so to speak. You can
Right.
only do that when you know what would be the risk initially,
What's the
and then what
consequence?
would be
What's
the
the
impact
consequence?
of
Yeah,
that
what's
risk.
the
Exactly.
absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
this is
so
I mean, I it reminds me of the time I literally was at a company and we were in their data center and pointed to a server that was kind of sitting in the back and oh, we don't know what that is. We don't turn, they literally had no idea what it was, but the light was on, hard drive was still flashing and so but this is literally an example of what truly happens. But now that kind of environment's in the cloud because people spin stuff up and then they don't deprecate it properly or take care of it properly. I mean, this
or even,
potential sprawl is so much greater. And
yeah,
now when
if
you talk about third party, that's
yeah, even when let's say, they do uh, adhere to best practices, but everyone relies on third-party
yep,
solutions one way or the other, and supply chain attacks are increasing year on year, and
yep,
therefore you need to understand how can you define the risk first and understand whether there is risk,
yeah,
and then how can you calculate the impact, or have it shown to you,
yeah.
and then put in place safeguards to make sure that when that risk becomes real, uh,
You minimize it.
um, yeah, and you take the sting out of it, and
Yeah,
while not killing your business
yeah.
operation.
So, I mean, I just looked at the clock and I'm going, oh my God, I could talk to my buddy forever. Um, but I know we can't talk forever. So why don't you, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about the best way to get a hold of, get more information, learn more about Skyhawk Security.
Oh, thank you. First and foremost, thank you so much. I mean, we could have talked about so many things, and I really appreciate that. But I guess that the way that, and you weren't familiar with Skyhook before, so I guess the way your questions went just shows again and again why these are predominant questions in the industry, and everyone seeks the answers to these questions. So I'm glad that I was able to kind
Yeah,
of
no, this has
provide
been awesome.
them, and that we have a platform that deals with these things, and we have our own space and two legs to stand on, and great customers. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Well,
that.
yeah, no, and actually, for me, very enlightening. The let's call it launch pad of Radware, right? And I totally understand your own company, but I also understand there's great minds in this space, and the people at Radware certainly have a bunch of them because you just don't survive at the top of your game for 3 decades
Oh, for sure,
if
in the
you're not
space
any
that
good at
they are
it,
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. In the space that they're in and the products they are making.
Yeah.
And
But they're innovative thinkers. And I think also recognizing, the innovator's dilemma challenge that every company has when you're big and you got a great idea, that they had the wherewithal to, send Hen and you off in your own little boat to go start something, I think is awesome.
yeah, and
Maybe not
also the
such a
fact
little
that,
boat anymore.
there really was very little, you know, at the beginning, very little there. So I need to give credit to Hen, uh, my friend, mentor over the years, for um, really bringing this company to where it is now and completely changing the face of the industry. These days, Gartner are speaking about the things that we do very naturally. 2 years ago, when we were
Wow.
speaking to them, just to remind you, right? They thought we were off our heads. They
Mm.
thought that we were in a sci-fi world,
We're
and
in
we
a
once we've proven it.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, we are kind of, but you know, we gotta understand that the sci-fi is reality now. So
It's,
we need
I
to
was
cope
just
with
going to
that.
say, man, the world right now, and I mean, I've seen some stuff in the 40 plus years I've been in this biz, and I can tell you nothing, I don't believe, is going to compare to what's happening with AI and the magnitude and the impact of this in every aspect of our lives. It's pretty remarkable. But man, this has been so cool, brother. I love you. I just have really enjoyed this a ton, and I want to hopefully do it again. Tell them your website. Tell them how to get a hold of you. Um,
Skyhawk.security. That's simple.
so it's skyhawk
Dot
security.
security.
Easy peasy. Okay, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, Adi Golan, Vice President of what?
Solution engineer. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I always,
The titles don't matter, man. It's
yeah.
all about the people.
Well, that's right. That's right. But I wanted to do it properly. Look him up on LinkedIn. You'll see the guy's got some chops. It's been awesome talking with you, man.
Thank
I
you.
really
And you as
appreciate
well.
it. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an awesome discussion. I told you I get some brilliant guests, and Adi is a perfect example. So I hope you've liked it, enjoyed it. Please like it, share it, forward it on to your friends, subscribe, and make sure you come back for the next episode of Talking Cloud. Thanks so very much.